Hello and welcome to the Thefanpubcast, episode 12.
Wow, it's 12, it's amazing, isn't it? It's gone so quick, Al. So much is happening in these first few weeks.
Now,
yeah, really touching distance of the fantasy season. We're already heavily into drafting. We've had a few drafts. I'm sure a lot of our viewers would have had a few drafts as well. Hopefully proper drafts, not just some mocks. Getting exciting, isn't it?
And if you've got the drafts coming up, we've got a bit of an ADP risers and fallers, a bit of with a difference really. This is not on the actual expert consensus, but it's just people who I've noticed that going up and down in drafts.
Brilliant. Looking forward to that then, now. So news then, I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
lots happened.
We're about 2 weeks, probably less than that now to the season, and now where you hold your breath if you've already drafted and you're watching your players in pre-season.
Already
games.
Seeing some bad news on some fronts. It's always tough. You have to hold the faith sometimes with these things.
Well, the first news we're going to talk about is the Philly Voices Jimmy Kempski suggests Wendell Smallwood could win the Eagles' starting running back job.
I think it's unlikely. I think the reason behind this is simple. I mean, look, he's obviously turned up at camp not in the shape that they wanted. I think, we spoke about this offline.
You mean LeGarrette Blount?
LeGarrette Blount, yeah. We spoke about this offline. I think this is a rocket up LeGarrette Blount's, to be honest, his backside, to say, you know what, you better start turning it on. And in truthfulness, it's probably exactly what he needs. And the Eagles fans actually love Blount already. There's a lot. I mean, he's one of the best-selling jerseys there. I mean, the guy, they want a pounder. I said this last time. They want that player to come in and basically put the hurt on the opposition. And he's ideal for that. So I think just hold faith. If people are willing to sell cheap on Blount in any league, just snap him up, stick him on the bench. If you can get him for cheap, get him for cheap.
You should get a goal line if he's there.
Even the worst case scenario, and it's short yarded run-ins. I mean, you're going to trust Wendell Smallwood at 5 yards out? I don't think so.
Or
Sproles, not really.
They're not got the size.
So I would hold faith a little bit. I wouldn't panic at the moment. Yeah, it's a bit disconcerting. It annoys you. I've got one share of Blount in my own league, ironically enough. But I'm not worried about that. I drafted for depth. And that's what he's there for. He will be a depth player. So hold faith. Let's see how it plays out with the next. He's got two and a bit. I've also seen
somebody saying that Sproles was going to be there. So it's all up in the air at the moment. So just keep an eye on that situation.
We'll see how it plays out. It is one to monitor. Could it be a running back by committee situation? Quite possibly. But I think we already guessed that was probably likely to be the case. I mean, it's not like they're going to give Blount 30 carries a game. He's just too big for that kind of load. Give him 10 to 15 touches. Mostly close in work, ideal for it. So that's how I've looked at it.
And touchdowns are king sometimes.
Yeah, very much in standard
especially
league.
If it's in a flex position.
Yeah, it's standard league. It's perfectly fine. I mean, in a PPR, half-point PPR, it's the wrong player straight away, Blount.
See, this is annoying because the Eagles did this last year.
Yeah.
You never knew which running back to play.
Yeah.
I mean, they played Matthews. He did okay in some games. But, the fans didn't like him, and then they were mixing in Smallwood.
Yeah, the fans want the pounder.
Sproles, and you never knew what was going to happen.
The fans want Blount. That's what they want. They want the pounder to work, and he's going to have to pick his socks up and get on with it. So we'll see what happens. We'll watch it.
If you're drafting now, I think my advice would be avoid.
What you want to do is try and cash in cheap. If you can get him cheap, great. If you can't get him cheap, don't go high. Don't waste anything on it. That's all really to do. And obviously in Dynasty, unload. Because he's not around for the long term. So, with situations like this, just get what you can now, because the longer the season goes on, the worse it can get, I guess. But you probably find there won't be many takers, and you'll be limited to what you can get, if anything.
Okay, well, it appears Paxton Lynch has already lost the Broncos quarterback battle. They've named Trevor Siemian as a starter.
Let's just see how this plays out.
Apparently Paxton needs a bit
more time. Yeah. Give it 5 weeks. Let's see what happens. Let's see how the Denver Broncos start. I still believe in Paxton Lynch. I still believe that they will ultimately. He's there for a reason. Let's see how it plays out. Trevor
Siemian's got the backing of the players.
We'll see how that lasts. I don't think he had the backing last year when there was a bit of discontent in the camp. I'm very interested to see how this plays out early doors for Denver. I still think Paxton's the guy that will take over that role in the end.
He's certainly been out playing him at pre-season, Siemian.
Yeah, he's done a good job pre-season. He deserves his shot. We'll see how it plays out.
Maybe he will come on, so...
What do you think of the two? I mean, none of them. I mean, at the moment, none of them are exciting.
I think I'd avoid both of them, to be honest. Even though they got great wide receivers.
You wouldn't use them, would you?
I don't think either of them are going to be.
No, in any sort of standard of setting. I can't even think in a 2 QB league I'd want one of them as my second or third.
Well, if it was a third and Trevor Siemian was still there late in the draft and you're in a 2 QB league.
I guess that'd be okay.
Not? Yeah.
Oh, that's okay there, but you certainly don't want him to be your second, do you?
No. Okay. The Chiefs head coach Andy Reid said Alex Smith is the undisputed QB starter in Kansas. Not really a surprise.
No surprise. I mean, Mahomes will he's going to sit behind him all year, and then they're going to bring him on next season, and that's ideal for Kansas. It's the right thing for Alex Smith. He can showcase what he can do. I think he'll take more chances this year, Alex Smith, and that might bode well for his future. Actually, he's still got a few years left in this league.
Well, you saw, one pass to Tyreek Hill, 32 yards. It's
quite exciting.
That's going to help sort of pad his stats. A big praise from Tyreek Hill.
I like the fact that Alex Smith has decided to approach this the right way with the right professionalism. He's going to use this year to go for it.
It's good to see Travis Kelce back on the field as well. He got a big pass from Alex Smith.
He looked really good, and he looked like he had no issues. I think he'll be fine for the start of the season.
I'm pretty sure Chris Conley caught quite a big pass from Alex Smith.
I think he had a 27-yarder in that game, and it was also a nice play. He looked an interesting player, actually. Deep shot, but in large leagues worth a punt, I think.
Yeah,
just to see how that goes.
Or with a big bench, maybe.
Yeah,
Chris
very
Conley
much so.
late on.
Yeah, large dynasty league, definitely worth first stash, just to see what happens.
Definitely dynasty league,
yeah.
6'3".
Like him, interesting player.
Okay, well, this is a guy you picked up, Anquan Bolden,
and retired,
and you've killed him. He said he's done with football after you picked him up. So
yeah, well, I think he said as soon as I picked him up, he was done with football.
That's it for me.
I'm done with football. That's it. He's picked me up with his fantasy team. It's over. I know if I play another season, I'm dead. So I'll leave now.
The Bills are a bit.
That's
what are
weird.
they doing?
They're tank mode. It's do you know what? I think
pick up a 37-year-old veteran who knows what he's doing.
Well, hold on.
And put him with the second team.
Yeah, but also think of this, right? So you're Antoine Baldwin. They persuaded you, however they've done it. Could have been through the cash. It could have been a number of different methods. They said, look, come to us for 1 year, please. We need your help. He's gone there. And then he's realised, Christ, you're all in tank mode, and you want me to sacrifice what's left of my body.
He wasn't even playing with the first team, though. That was his biggest gripe.
I don't blame him for retiring. I just think it's obvious they're in tank mode. And he's actually, he's putting his body on the line for them. Why would you bother?
I guess they were looking for a slot receiver at the time, and then they picked up Jordan Matthews, who is a great slot player. He's always, no one really likes him, but he's done pretty well in the slot before, and his stats bear that out. So. Yeah, maybe they didn't need two in the slot because neither of them can play outside. Really.
Well, I felt sorry for Baldwin, but it had to come, and their team's in tank mode. Buffalo are there's a number of teams that seem to be destined to want high picks this year. It's going to be a race to the bottom, isn't it?
So if you had to own any receiver, I suppose Clay might be.
I think
really
Clay.
Late.
Yeah, I think Clay has.
Someone's got a catch.
Yeah, Clay has an uptick, but I mean, again, it's second tier tight end numbers, so don't expect a miracle. Zay Jones.
Is it Andre Holmes as well?
Yeah, Zay Jones would be a rookie to target late in a draft for interest.
Andre Holmes?
Maybe.
He was starting before. Yeah. He was ahead of Zay Jones.
Yeah, maybe. It just is. It's the kind of team that you just think you don't really want to own too many shares of. You know what worries me about them, really? How, when you think about the running game and the lack of faith and the fact that they're hoarding draft picks. So you got 2 1s, 2 2s, 2 3s for next year. I wonder how many times they're going to face 8 men in the box from McCoy this year. Seriously, I mean, they are going to face a lot of problems with that team because that's what a coordinator would do. He will go, "This is interesting. I don't think we've got to worry about anybody here. We can really go after the QB here." You saw Cleveland showed the last night. Actually, I don't know if you caught that game. They were playing the Giants, right? Yeah, now, I know we'll talk a bit about that in a minute, but what I loved about Cleveland's defensive mentality, 2 corner blitzes, blitz off the side, that's how you play the NFL. If you're not a good defence,
Manning was
take
like
risks.
A rabbit in headlights.
Yeah, take risks. And what that tells you is if you're a coordinator against Buffalo or a weaker team, you can afford to roll the dice a lot more. So I wouldn't be at all surprised to see poor Tyrod Taylor running for his life in that team this year. Really, literally running for his life. So
that's where his strengths lie.
And he's a great player, very elusive. But you know what? The problem is that he knows. I mean, his agent would have told him they got 2 number 1s next year. So showcase your skills this year because don't be accepted.
And they got Peterman as well.
Don't be surprised that they put you on the chopping block.
I watched Peterman. I quite liked him as a backup QB.
Yeah, you picked him out actually. You did mention him right back at the late round rookie kind of flyer kind of people.
He is somebody who passes.
And I like what you say. And the more I've seen of him, I actually do see what you're saying. And there is definitely a player to look at a little bit more as the season progresses.
As a passing QB,
yeah.
It looks.
Yeah, I want to see a little bit more of him, particularly in pre-season. I did like what I saw, and I was thinking, oh yeah,
he had that touch of class about him.
Yeah.
I think. But
nice touch passes.
I mean, I may be wrong. I don't know.
Look good. I mean, at this stage, that's all you can go on.
Yeah, Nathan Peterman, maybe a
name for the future definitely. I like that. Good call. But yeah, Buffalo tank mode. Be wary of McCoy now. Get ready for what we said. Remember, we picked him out as a potential injury candidate for this season. Now it's getting more and more likely that you think Jeekers, 8 men in the box, lots of blitzes coming in. He's going to take many more hits this season. That worries me.
What about the Jordan Matthews outlook? How do you see him in the slot again?
Yeah, really good. I mean, it's good for him because
now Bolden's gone. I think.
Yeah, it's really good for him because there's going to be a ton of dump off passes in the slot. He's a good player for that. He's a good player, can get open really quickly. It's what you need. There isn't time for the quarterback to think. Not in that offense, not with the way it's going. There won't be time. You're going to have to dump this ball off. You are going to have to, for your perseverance to keep drives going. You ain't going to have time to sit back. I can't see it. So, it's going to be good for Jordan Matthews. I see a big uptick there. And you got him really late, didn't you, in one draft? I mean, you picked him up in, was it round 15? Was that Jordan Matthews in my league?
Yes, yeah.
See, that really looks good now.
I hope so. He's starting to climb the boards again.
It's really good.
He's coming back from that minor injury.
My one just retired, so it's good for you. It's bad for me. But very interesting. My draft is not looking too clever at the moment.
Well, I'm happy.
I haven't started. It's already falling apart. There you go. Moving on.
Okay, DeAndre Hopkins sidelined with hand injury since August the 9th, so that's a bit worrying. He hasn't played since. So
yeah, this is beginning to get. They've kind of hidden a little bit of this behind the scenes, haven't they? It's not been absolutely clear what's going on, but now I'm beginning to get a little bit edgy for the start of the season. Again, in the same mould that you kind of heard about some of the quarterback injuries, and you're thinking, will they be ready week one? I'm a little bit concerned. I still believe he will be, but I am a little bit. I've got reservation.
It's a bit like with Mari Cooper. He's back and fine now. You just got to keep an eye on him.
Just have to watch to see how it develops. I mean, at the moment, it's not like you're not going to be put with his ADP. You're not going to be put off drafting him where he is, but you are going to be wary of it because if there's a better target ahead, or players there that you think, which one do I take? You're probably going to err on the side of a bit of safety because of the hand injury. So that's the right thing to do. But he is an elite player, and he can easily bounce back there.
Okay,
hope so.
Jordan Reed's been taken off the PUP list. So
yeah, that's good.
That's good news for the Redskins. So
yeah, it's good news.
We'll wait to see how long it is before we put back on
let's see what happens. I mean, he's got such a checkered injury history. We don't need to dwell on it. It's just let's see what happens next. Hopefully, he stays healthy. He's good for the team when he does, but let's see.
Okay, the NFL Network's James Palmer suggests Jamal Charles' performance in the third preseason game for the Broncos will decide his fate.
I think his fate has already been sealed. I think it was already sealed a long time ago.
The fact that he even played into the third preseason game is
the only person that doesn't realise his career is over. We've said this before. Jamal Charles.
You're harsh.
I know, but it's true. I mean, I love the guy to bits. He was elite. He was a special player. But there comes a point when you have to realise it's finished.
You don't really want to take your legacy.
And I don't want to see the guy. I mean, it'd be worse for him to make the 53. They use him in a few downs. He knows he's not good enough, or he gets really hurt. That's worse. Yeah, it's worse. It's better to be open and honest about it now. I mean, the guy still has a career in the NFL if he wants it, or in broadcasting, or in all sorts of different things. Coaching. There's so many different routes he could go down where he can still have a really big positive outlook. He will always be regarded as one of the great running backs. So, what's not to like about that? What's horrible is to see someone linger on at the end. You don't like that. It's like putting
especially when they put it out of such a good career.
It's so horrible. It's like watching a lame horse. It's the worst thing. You just want them to go. Just please.
Maybe he will. Maybe he will.
Yeah, I am. I know it's harsh, but it's been obvious for a little while to me. I mean, I would hate to see him linger out at this point.
Okay, well, John Brown, better news for him. He's back in practice for the Cardinals, so I think the coach was almost calling him out.
Yeah, it did feel like it. It's felt like they, there's nothing the guy can do. He's got this sickle cell trait. He's going to be more susceptible to things. He has become a bit of a project player, if I'm being honest. He's one of them. When I mean project player, what I'm really referring to is the fact that you have to really stick with the faith that he's going to come through all this. And it's
he's got
really
the ability.
He's certainly got the ability. He's proved that. And it's a team that needs the second wide receiver so critically. I really do hope that. Let's hope that he can stay injury free.
Well, there's the other options. So if obviously Larry Fitzgerald's number one, undoubtedly. John Brown would be the number two, but if he has injury problems, you're looking at Jerron Brown and you're looking at JJ Nelson. Yeah, I also read Aaron Dobson.
Yeah, see, all of those, like when you say none of them, do any of them pass my eye test? The answer to those three is no.
I read this morning,
and
I don't know how true it is, Aaron Dobson could be favourite to get the number 2 role.
Oh, for God's sake. I mean, it's awful.
He's had 10 receptions in the last 2 years.
It's not going to be somebody that I don't suspect we're going to recommend any of those 3 to anybody to draft.
I don't see how you can you? Unless you're in a really deep league.
And even then you'd be like disappointed because it just feels like a bench warmer, doesn't it? It's one of those you eventually drop for a better candidate, just sits there for months in a large dynasty league until you finally, that's a better
I don't know,
player.
but if you're in a dynasty league, obviously Fitzgerald can't go on forever.
No.
John Brown's got sickle cell trait.
I think
other injuries, quad injury.
The wide receiver core are going to be, it's either going to be redesigned through free agency or drafting. That's the reality, to be honest with you. And you can see that the Kansas have still got the backbone of a good team, and they can just add pieces to
Is there any of them?
Sorry, Arizona. I do apologize.
Is there any of them in Dynasty you would own for? Because there's going to be opportunity there.
The truth is that in Dynasty, I'm not interested in any of those because none of them for me do it.
Someone's got to catch.
I think they'll probably rebuild their whole wide receiver core over the next year. That's how I think it'd be through free agency and the draft is how it will be done.
Anquan Bolden could come out.
He could come out of retirement and probably want to play there. Yeah, he might do. He could do worse than going to Kansas. Please go to Kansas.
Kansas. We're not in Kansas anymore.
Dorothy, go to Kansas. I know it's Arizona, but
we're not in Kansas anymore.
Go anywhere you like, please, but keep away from Buffalo.
We'll move on. Couple of bits of information of people picking up injuries that you might not know of that you need to keep an eye on. Crowell, he's got a groin injury, so he's currently sitting out. Only 2 weeks ago to the season.
It's another one of them. You see, these injuries. That one is another one of those. I mean, it's a lingering injury. It's an horrible one because you can't properly move. You know what it's like. I mean, we don't need to dwell on it.
I don't know what sort of level strain it is on groin. I
don't think it matters. I don't think it matters.
I don't want to go near his groin to find out.
I don't think it matters, to be perfectly honest with you. I think whenever you look at it, that's the kind of injury that actually stops training cold until you are able to move properly again. You can't do any training because re-aggravation is so high.
Just something to keep
and
an
it's
eye
also on. As well, a groin strain can become a hernia as well. That's another thing that can sometimes happen, and that's problematic. That's 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
So
it's just something to monitor if you're in drafts coming up.
I'm sure you'll be fine for the start. So a lot of these, it's always they'll be fine for the start of the season, but you do worry that they get to the first game, they get a knock. It's a re-aggravation of the injury they had just in pre-season. We always say about this. 50% re-aggravate the injury. So you're absolutely right. You have to monitor it. You have to make a little note of it and just see how it plays out.
Well, 2 others that are sitting out. Fournette, who's obviously re-aggravated.
That's really concerned me. Yeah. This is the one that really has the biggest series of red flags because...
So where would he have to fall to in a draft? What sort of ADP? What draft position would he have to be at now for you to...
I think I'd take a punt because I always say it depends on the league size, but if he was outside 30... If his ADP was outside 30, just outside 30, so in a small league...
You'd still be happy to...
I'd take a punt. If it was even a large league, it was 32, 33 range, 34, so a really big league. Yes, I would third round, it's early doors. You could take a shot, because you're taking shots at players once you get outside the first couple of rounds there anyway, really. And you find this anyway, people see this more and more be true. You can't say, my first 6 picks are all locks. Doesn't happen like that. You hope your first 2 are, and the rest you hope will fall in play. So I take a shot at him, but I really do have some serious problems because I would think there's probably a lot of players around him. If I was going to pick, I think I'd probably pick him ahead of him. That's the problem. It'd have to be the perfect scenario where everybody else is like,
depending on your team need.
And a team need, yeah. So I do worry because this is, again, it's a re-aggravation of an injury apparently that he's had for a long time at college. And
which is a worrying thing.
Very worrying that.
I mean, TJ Yeldon's also out. So welcome back, Chris Ivory.
Chris Ivory.
Or it could be Corey Grant, we don't know.
But the fantasy relevance of these guys is minimal, but it will have some if nobody else is there.
Well, it is. Anyone starting.
Anybody that starts as fantasy relevant.
Any port in a storm, Sean.
Exactly. And I couldn't need them. I may be drafting for them very soon. That's right. Absolutely.
Right. There's a couple of... Let's talk about a couple of the rookies that sort of had quite good games in pre-season game 2. James Conner, what are your thoughts on him?
Very impressed. He had some moments early in the game where he had some drops. So there was the negatives were what he should be strong at, the catches. There wasn't the chemistry between him and the quarterback. It was pretty obvious. He was slightly off timing with his route running, and that
will come with practice.
That affected the quarterback a little bit, but also equally it's 50-50. Sometimes it's the quarterback's fault as well. So I wasn't too worried. What I saw running was much more important. Could he take over the job if Bell went down? Is he available? Can he step up?
Might not be there.
Yeah.
At the end of the year.
Can he step up and do the job if they need him to? And the answer clearly is yes. He's a very capable player, and you can see why they like him and why he was chosen. He felt, if you just put Bell's shirt on him, you wouldn't have known it wasn't Bell. That's the highest compliment I can give.
Well, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, he didn't have the patience, but his decision making was great. What he was doing in terms of that's what.
A very impressive first game. For James Conner.
You can only judge him against the first team players that he played against. The second stringers and third stringers, I'm not interested in that part. But what I saw for the first team reps was good enough. I was happy enough to say, yeah, I can see why they liked him.
What did you think of Christian McCaffrey this week?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to do what we think, which is he's going to be a fantastic PPR player. He will get a sprinkling of running plays, but he is. He did
do one big run between the tackles.
But I just want to remind people that if I can tell you there's a tell that at the moment Carolina running game. There's a tell, and if I can spot it, so can every defensive coordinator. He won't get away with some of that stuff when it comes up to game one. What you want to see is how they sprinkle him into the running game, and is he then effective once he starts going up. Look, if this guy can start pulling off 10-yard, 11-yard runs against some good quality defences, you've got a player. At the moment, let's just be a little bit careful. We know when he's in space, he's electric.
Look at that one pass he took.
Yeah, he's great.
He took it to the house.
But we know that's what he's capable of. He's an electric player, and you cannot.
He actually impressed me.
Can't put a price on speed. He
actually impressed me enough to draft him, and I said I probably wouldn't draft him, but there was a few extenuating circumstances.
No, well, it's good. It's good that he has, and it's good that you've done that because you've adjusting to.
I didn't draft him that high either. He fell to the 50s.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, it's not like you've gone. In that draft, fifth round is a bargain. It's how many teams were in that league? Was it 12?
12, yeah.
12, yeah, it's a bargain, and at fifth round you can't go wrong. What's not to like about that pick?
Okay, Marlon Mack.
I'm very impressed, actually. Impressed enough to say this. Hang on, let me just dig this out. You carry on talking while I dig something out. I want to tell you a little bit about Marlon Mack.
I've got him in Dynasty, and I am happy. I'm a happy man after watching that. I know maybe it wasn't against the best sort of quality of defence, so that's one thing where you got to tell.
I do apologise for keeping you waiting, but I need to dig something out because I want to talk about Marlon Mack in detail. Unless I bring up this piece of information for you,
I just think for the Colts. I mean, he looked like somebody who could come in and contribute this year. Yeah, very exciting.
What was the best thing about him? What was the thing you liked most about him?
Well, he was explosive. I mean, he was knocking off big runs. That's what you look for.
This is what I've already said.
This is his first ever game.
This is what I've said about Marlon Mack. From watching, I watched the college tape. I wanted to see what he did in pre-season and get to see, because it's like everything. When you're assessing players, it's like all I've been able to go on up to this point is you've only had his college tape. Quite impressive, but a lot of college tape running backs look impressive, because it depends on the defenses they're playing. We've now seen a bit more, so we've had a little bit more of a sample size. So this is what I've said. Obviously, Marlon Mack is 5'11", 210 pounds, super talented rusher that has a real opportunity to start games early on this season. In fact, his future in Indy is incredibly bright. You have to capitalise on this. I wrote this for Dynasty. Mack set records in USF, rushing yards, all-purpose yards, touchdowns, finishing his career with 6.16. Basically, the other night, Mack carried the ball for 45 yards in Saturday's Week 2 preseason games. He looks the part. In fact, he has a little bit 11 bell to his game. Watch the pre-season game yourself. Make a judgment call. Buy now. Get him on your dynasty teams. I predict a bright future, particularly in over the next 2 years. He's an 8 to 12 running back for sure. So there you go.
Is there any value in redraft, or is it just
none in redraft? It's all about dynasty. You've got him in dynasty.
No, I tend to agree with that.
Because Gore will. To be honest, this is Gore's final year. There's a lot of value in dynasty because he'll get a sprinkling this year, but you'll just not know when to use him. And there might be the odd game where you think, oh God, I wish I had used him.
Yeah,
but you just won't know when. But he will take over the role, but not this year because Gore is, rightly so, the number one.
And Robert Turbin's the number 2 at the moment.
Yeah,
and to be fair, he had an alright game.
Marlon Mack for next year, Dynasty, you have snagged a bargain, and I am telling people.
I hope you're right, but
you have 8 to 12 top RB.
I was impressed with the one game I've seen him play.
So sorry about the delay, but I wanted to get that in there because he really was something special, and it's become more and more obvious the more you look at him, and and he has a little slipped under my radar. I liked him. I'm always watching the Indianapolis situation, just waiting to see who's the right man for the job, and it's clearly him.
Okay, the next one on our rookie watch section, Deontay Foreman.
Yeah.
I thought he had another good game. I thought he looked good.
Lamar Miller actually could face a real challenge. I know no one's talking about it, but the
coach has actually come and said Foreman's nowhere near ready. He's nowhere near the part yet.
Well, I think
that sort of backs Lamar Miller. Really.
Yeah, but Lamar Miller had a very unimpressive 2016. If he has a very unimpressive start to this season, I would not be surprised to see this guy get some opportunities. In redraft league, obviously the value is minimal early doors, but it could have great value as you go towards, the championship.
Any injury to Lamar Miller,
championship part of the season, you just don't know how that's going to shake out.
Wait a minute. What about Alfred? Oh,
no, forget that.
Alfred,
you've got the blue for drafting him. Yeah, no, I don't think
he's average every year. He's consistent.
He's consistently average. Yeah, that's that. I suppose that makes him good.
Well, blue's how you feel if you ever have to play him.
If you're playing Alfred Blue in your team, your fantasy squad is an all-time problem.
Yeah, it's time to look.
You've gone 0 RB. You must have done. There's no other option, or you've had more injuries than sense. Can happen. I'm expecting it.
Okay, Kamara from the Saints.
Fabulous player. Alvin Kamara, for the same reasons that I've just mentioned, Marlon Mack is already on my Dynasty radar for next year. Alvin Kamara is a player to own in Dynasty. Not for this season, but for the future, the guy clearly passes all the measurables.
Yeah, he looks good.
He looks great. So this
is one of the first or second catches. He had 50 yards.
There's some great running backs in this year's draft. I think we're going to look back on this year's draft class of running backs throughout the whole of the rounds of drafting and actually think what a great calibre of running backs have come into the league this year. And you'll see this with the likes of Mack for next year. Alvin Kamara, quite possibly next year, will be the Saints' option. I think Ingram will go in the off-season. He'll be, moved on. Peterson's final hurrah. So, you can see the logic.
So for this year, people are penning in Alvin Kamara's role as Travaris Cadet, which is like no role.
No role, yeah.
That's like 40 yards.
In a Dynasty League, you try to get this guy if you can get him, and you stash him on your bench.
And he's probably worth more in PPR.
And you wait and see how it plays out. You might have gained yourself... sometimes in Dynasty, it's about having a player ready for the next year. I call it the hospital or taxi squad. You want to have a player that isn't necessarily going to start this year. I've got a good example in my own team. I've got Derek Henry. Well, we can all see the guy's going to be elite. It's just when. And that probably isn't this year. But it'll be next year.
I think Henry will play this year a lot.
And it will be... Whatever happens, he will get... His role will come. Same with the guys like Marlon Mack and Alvin Kamara.
They're certainly going to put him in the slot, Derek Henry.
I'd love it. I love it if they do.
Because they need to get him on the field more.
Yeah, I like to see it.
He is a good player.
I'll be very pleased if they do. Very pleased if they do.
I'm a big fan of Derek Henry.
Yeah, he just looks great. And he'd be perfect in that offence. They're going to put some damage up this year.
What did you make of the Jeremy Hill, Joe Mixon battle?
It's an interesting battle. I mean, it still seems to be going...
I don't think Mixon outplayed him this week.
No, I think
Hill did outplay Mixon, if anything.
I think it's still going to go the way we thought. I mean, early doors, it's really going to be Jeremy Hill's show. Mixon will come into it more and more as the season unfolds. But the problem with all of this is if you're drafting Mixon you might not get no value for a few weeks. And that can be devastating to your chances.
And you throw in Gio Bernard and Cedric Pearman, maybe not so much of an issue.
The problem always comes in fantasy, because, if we talk about it from a fantasy perspective, it doesn't matter if you're just watching.
Well, we talk about everything from a fantasy perspective.
If you look at it from that perspective and you think to yourself, look, we saw Mixon in my draft, 16-team draft go. It was a really heavy running back draft. But we saw him go in the second round. And I've got no
about pick 20,
27, 20, somewhere around that range. And I've got no problem with this because it was a very heavy running back draft. And you have to adjust to what's going on in the draft. But what is interesting is if that works out, great for the owner. And happens to be our champion, actually. But if it doesn't work out, then his second round pick could be no point or very few points for 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 8 weeks. You might not have the time to develop. It's not like Dynasty. You don't have the time to develop that player. Whereas in Dynasty, you would have... It's like, taxi squads. You don't mind if he doesn't do anything for 8 weeks, and then suddenly he flies. You think, oh, great, I'll put him in now. Brilliant. But in redraft, you haven't got that luxury.
Well, you never see me drafting a player that couldn't play for 6 weeks.
No, of course not. How's Zeke doing?
No, I can't talk about it. Let's see.
Let's move on with the Zeke saga, yeah.
Oh, dear.
I don't want to... we've had enough of him, yeah. I'm glad I've not drafted him yet. I felt like it. But I wanted to join you with the problems, but I thought no.
We'll talk about someone who has signed, probably on the verge of signing a lucrative new contract, Roger Goodell.
Oh yeah, well that's interesting news. I mean, opinions divided on him, isn't it? I mean, I think you're in the camp of you're not so keen.
No, and it's not. I'm not so keen. I think the NFL needs. It's becoming a bit like FIFA in many ways.
Yeah, that's
all these dodgy leaks.
Worrying analogy, but you're absolutely right.
I mean, everything. I mean, how many times do you read a story where something's been leaked by the league?
Yeah.
The Zeke story, the Brady story. Loads of things get leaked. Before they're actually officially announced. This is. And then they release that tweet having a go at the Players Association for leaking. I mean, this is like typical of the sort of thing FIFA used to do in English soccer.
You are right. It needs absolutely cleaning up. And the question then, of course, is why would you offer a man...
This is supposed to be a professional organisation.
Yeah. I think... See, I like some of the things that Roger Goodell's done, I really do appreciate. But I have to also then take a step back and I have to think to myself, is Roger Goodell the right man to lead this going forward, considering he's involved in these leaks and various other problems? He's involved in it, no matter what you say. He's been there long enough.
Of course he is.
So the question is he good enough to do it? And I suppose if I'm being honest, I put my would I want him to carry on hat on. No,
he takes a lot of stick from the crowd. He's booed every time he's seen.
That's
just pantomime villain, really.
It might be better for the NFL in a position like commissioner. I would actually rather have someone who isn't associated with the game. I'd rather have someone who isn't an owner's favourite. I'd rather have someone who's a businessman who comes in, not Trump, but a businessman who comes in and actually, objectively looks at the situation and makes hard decisions based on what's
wrong
the
with
right
Trump?
thing. Nothing.
Make the NFL great again.
Yeah, of course. Fly the flag.
What could go wrong?
What could go wrong? Moving on.
Anyway,
he didn't want to invest in the Dallas Cowboys, did he? How big a mistake was that?
The whole thing with their disciplinary, that's all over the place. They're all over the place, a lot of it. I mean, they're doing some good things. Concussion,
there's loads of things that are shoring up, but what has to happen for it to become, as you said, it's a professional organisation. Everything has to be run in a way which is fair for all. Everybody signs up to those agreements. That's players, coaches, owners. You all got to agree to it, and then you move forward. Otherwise, we could be heading for what happened back in the 80s, where there was a player strike because rules were clear enough, and we could end up with that again. Not saying that's right round the corner, but it could be in another year or two if we get situations where a player's suspended for 6 weeks because they've got no evidence, and another player, he's accused of something that he didn't do, and they find it out 3 years later, but the guy hasn't played for 3 years.
Was it Adam Jones that's been arrested 9 times and never had a ban?
What do you say to that? I mean, there's madness. What about one rule for one rule for another, isn't it? So it definitely needs some work, no doubt. I don't want to dwell on it too much because it's one of those situations I think it can get very emotional.
So I'll tell you another thing.
But I do agree with you. I think we need to really see a big change.
The last deal they signed with the NFL Players Association, one of the ways they negotiated, I think it was to do with pay and conditions, one of the things they negotiated to get it through was to give Goodell more power.
Big mistake. Yeah,
I know. Yeah, so they sacrificed to get that through.
Look,
why does he want more power? He just needs to be fair. He doesn't need to have.
It's all about setting up. What we want to see is a fair situation. It's fair for the players, because I do think that these bans are going to come back and bite the commissioner. I do think it will come back and bite, and the NFL in general. And I do think players might end up saying enough's enough and go to a player strike, because they might say we're not going to give our services to a game that tells us we're guilty before being proven innocent.
Do you agree with me? Goodell doesn't deserve a 5 years.
I don't think he deserves. He does. I don't think he deserves a contract extension. He needs his contract out, and then they need to bring in a man who perhaps is not NFL related, businessman who can make hard, cold decisions based on what's right for the NFL moving forward. Because to be honest, it needs that kind of unfettered, unbiased opinion to move it forward.
You need it on player suspension. You need neutral body.
Yep.
Not somebody who works for Roger Goodell. He's a good friend of Goodell. We pay by Goodell.
You need, it's, as you say, independent.
How is that ever? They're already saying they don't think he's a fair arbitrator.
Yeah. So
it makes a mockery of the whole thing before it starts. So you've got all this public shouting about these bans.
I actually think it should actually, as you say, I think there should be a body of people that the players can go to. So it should be, if it's going to go to some sort of arbitration, there should be maybe half a dozen people that are the kind of people who can make a decision.
Yeah, you want ex-players on the board.
And then, if you've got half a dozen people who are part of that committee, the player can then choose which one of those 6 he wants to use as the person that oversees the case.
Well, they all talk to discuss the case and come up with the best one.
And then that person can look over the case. They can give their reasons for their findings, and then whatever the decision is, everybody has to have already agreed that they'll go with that based on what's found. And if the player's innocent, the player's bloody innocent. Let's get to that point quickly. If there's no evidence to answer for, then there's no evidence to answer for. If it's an infraction, then either give them a fine of some significance that actually goes to the cause of, if it's the infraction for violence, then okay, it goes to the victim. If it's the infraction for, some misdemeanor he's done, like Zeke, for example, something stupid he did in front of a crowd of people, okay, maybe the woman deserves some money, maybe not, because she has a history of these kind of things. So then the money goes to a good cause for women who have been maybe attacked or abused or something. So something good comes out of it. But you are absolutely right. There's something important here has to be done, because I do worry. Of
course, to change his ways.
I do worry that they are heading towards that situation that I saw in the 80s where the players had had enough. And this is another example of it. And it could happen on the back of the start. The Zeke thing might be the catalyst for players to go, this ain't right. This isn't right. He's been suspended for what reasons? And they give no findings. It's not acceptable, because what's going to happen next? Are you going to be the person accused of something and didn't do it, and then lose out a year's pay, or be chastised from the league to only be found innocent?
Findings. I mean, it's not that. Anyway, we'll move on, because we don't want to talk about that. But
no, it's good to do, and it may become more important in the future of the podcast. You never know.
Okay. Now, this is an ADP rise and fallers. We're not going to do it on who's fallen and rising, but who we've noticed. There's a few people to keep an eye on. Some of them are deep.
Love it.
Most of them are deep, actually.
I like that sort of stuff,
but they're people who are rising at draft.
So what are you starting with, fallers or risers?
Which one do you want to start with?
Let's do the fallers.
Okay, Sammy Watkins.
Yeah, well, I think that's obvious. You're going to be playing for the Rams. The Rams, unfortunately, had they weren't very good at home, let alone away last year. There'll be some improvements to the team. I'm convinced that the defensive and the coach can do that. But it's a tanker of a team. Not that we're tanking, but we're turning round. And when you're turning round, it takes time. One of the best lines I heard actually was my brother said, is that classic phrase: the Rams are in a 3-year rebuilding phase, and it's year 12. That says it all to me. And he's right. We have been rebuilding for so long. But I think under these guys, you can see the turning point. This will be okay.
Sammy Watkins, at least he's wearing number 2, which is very apt for describing the. Anyway,
that's a bad omen, isn't it? He's in the number 2 shirt.
On the other side of the coin, Cooper Kupp is on the rise. A lot of people are drafting him higher. He's getting a lot of receptions. He's getting targeted in the red zone. So
it is.
I mean, he's relatively low price.
It's a dynasty player, not a redraft player. He's
I
great.
Don't know. I think.
Well, I think you have to be a bit careful. I mean, look.
Oh, obviously in deep.
If it's a deep league,
don't pick him up in a.
If it's a deep redraft league, then fine, no problem. I don't have a problem with people taking him, because you don't know, and you might have to roll the dice.
I'm impressed with him pre-season.
But he definitely looks the part. But I think in the future, he looks great. I think for the Rams, he's something to build around, and we'll have to see. We won't have many pieces to build around, but he could be one of them.
I mean, again, opposite sides of the coin. Eddie Lacy's trending downwards. Thomas Rawls is trending upwards on the Seattle.
It's a running back by committee, and it's been like that all year long, and it's heading that way for sure.
And Chris Carson's another one that's in the mix as well. Yeah, he's getting rookie first team snaps.
It's definitely a running back by committee. It's a bit like some of the situations we discussed with the Eagles earlier. I just see that in any given Sunday, it could be any one of those players, and we could be facing that. The only problem here is, I don't know how they're going to use Eddie Lacy. Is he going to end up like LeGarrette Blount? Is he going to be a goal line kind of back, or close in kind of work, or close the game out stuff? Don't know. Don't know how they're going to use Rawls. His injury history is so sporadic; it's all over the place. I love the talent, but I just don't know if he can stay healthy enough, and that may open the door for Carson. So it'd be interesting how it plays out.
Well, it's actually a wide door if Eddie Lacy's above it.
Yeah, it's a fair point. It's a double door, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's a double door.
Blake Bortles.
Yeah,
apparently him and Chad Henn. Yeah, quarterback battle now. It's trending very much the wrong way.
Now we very much talked about this. I don't know if you remember.
Could be the beginning.
Remember, we talked about this in one of the very first podcasts for this season. I said very clearly in that pod. I had to go back into it and have a look. And I said I think he's playing for his life this year. He's playing for his job. Well, that's proved to be absolutely accurate, isn't it?
He might even make.
He may not even make the season the way it's going. And actually, he's been terrible in pre-season, terrible in camp. there isn't a lot that I don't like his odds, quite frankly, at this moment in time. The team look like they're moving in a new direction. And with that and the news of Fournette's, ankle, oh, God.
Draft anyone on the Jags.
I feel sorry for the Jags. Yeah, you've got Henny throwing you the ball. I mean, if that's their quarterback for the season, I mean,
So
8 men in a box.
I mean, Alan Robinson may be the one if he falls.
Well, do you think realistically?
Who's best quarterback to be thrown to Robinson, Bortles or Chad Henne?
I don't think either. I mean, what worries me about Robinson's chance? I mean, you've got Robinson in one league, haven't you? You've got one share of him, I think.
Yeah, but he
fell at the right
enough,
ADP.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you do when you've got a player who's that potential? You have to take him. I mean, I must be
like
honest.
it.
That was even worse.
I hated myself for it.
As often we do, don't we? This is the problem. It's the classic. You're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't, aren't you? So you sometimes in fantasy you just have to do it. But it's looking so bad for that team. I just see 8 men in a box just putting pressure on the running back, and I don't like this situation.
I don't think Robinson. He's good enough if they can get. He's like DeAndre Hopkins.
The question really has to come to this: is how many points are you predicting for Robinson as it currently stands? So if you had to put a fantasy prediction on it, how many fantasy points do you think he can get for this season?
140.
So that's your hope for a 140 season.
Well, not hoping. I'm hoping
that's
for
you want more,
160 plus.
But 140 is logical. I agree with that. I think
his floor is about 130 probably.
Yeah, I think 140. I think 140 is fair because we saw this even when players like Emmanuel Sanders and Demarius Thomas, with Trevor Siemian, they ended up about the 140 mark. And I think
they're good players, but they're
limited by the QB, and I think the 140 is about the right area for him. And sometimes good things happen. Maybe he has a good year with touchdowns, so that can make all the difference for a redraft. He only has a limited amount of yards, maybe 1,000, but he gets 10 touchdowns, which he's a 160 player. So he gives you.
And he's definitely capable.
He's very capable. It's just unfortunate the timing of everything is just.
Just
awful.
You saw in that quarterback. I mean, he got miles clear. And Bortles just had to throw it to him, and he threw it.
He's another player.
Threw it so short.
He's another player that's so affected by the quarterback play. Like last year, I was thinking, whose fault is it? Because you're looking at both. I'm thinking, is it Robinson? Is it Bortles? I was blaming mostly Bortles because he's the king.
I mean, Bortles. It's like DeAndre Hopkins.
It just bodes so badly for Robinson this year because of this. And the other thing that I heard, the stat that stood out, it was the one stat that kills Bortles stone dead. It's the one we talked about in the podcast actually. He's the king of garbage time.
Well, he is. Everyone knows it.
That it sums it up.
So maybe they start with Chad Henne, and when they're losing, they bring on Blake
to pad the fantasy stats. Yeah, that's a good point. I like your thinking.
Andrew Luck, obviously, he's trending down because we're still a bit murky waters.
Yeah, he's a bargain player, though, isn't he? I mean,
he could be, yeah.
If you do the right thing, it doesn't matter what format he is. I mean, in Dynasty, he's a bargain player, but you have to temper your enthusiasm with another quarterback, obviously. And if it's redraft, you assume he's not going to start, and you balance your team accordingly. That you've got another starter. If you do that, when Luck comes in, he can be very elite, and he can give you an uptick, and you might have got him at a really cheap price. So nothing wrong in fantasy with that, but understandable why people are getting edgy. I can understand it. I got edgy and I traded him. That's what happens in life, isn't it? I got edgy and decided to move on. So
you need to keep your bottle, I think.
I saw enough.
You have to play it cool.
Yeah,
don't panic. Panic!
I got an offer I couldn't refuse, to be honest. So sometimes in life you have to take those offers.
Okay, people trending in opposite directions again. Yep. We've got Dalvin Cook going up. We've got Latavius Murray going down.
Well, I love
Dalvin Cook. A lot of love.
I love him to pieces. Actually, he looks great for their offensive fit. We made a bold prediction when it wasn't the trendy thing. And that's looking really solid. I mean, he is going to be another one of the draft class that looks really exciting. He's going to impact this year. He's 3 down. He's a 3 down back.
I mean, he was on one of your rookies to draft in.
Yeah, really love him to bits.
Months ago.
Yeah, love him to bits.
I know other people sort of.
I know the pro day was crap. I mean, I said this before. I know it's a bad day at the office, but without dwelling on it, you can't just look at that. Sometimes there's a bit more to this than meets the eye. The guy has come in. He's fallen in. At first, I was unsure because you're thinking, how's this going to work because of the team that they've got? And, is he really going to be able to break through straight away? And very, very quickly, what we've learned is Latavius Murray has faded off into the distance.
Well, he hasn't really played much of injury.
They've not really worried about that because they're thinking to themselves, we got this kid who looks great. And they've had Peterson there, so they know what great is. And now they're thinking, well, he can play every down. And I'm thinking to myself as a fantasy enthusiast, I'm going, I'll just keep moving him up the board stock. He just keeps moving up. But I've been lucky that, like you say, sometimes, I don't want to draft them too high because I don't want to, I don't want too many.
You don't want to lose the value.
I don't want to lose the value, but luckily I did get a stock of Dalvin Cook in one league, in the Fun League, our friend John's league, and I'm delighted to get him in that league, just so I own a piece of him to see, just so I can cheer him on as well as probably boo him when he's played against one of my other teams. But
my only slight concern,
yeah,
is Latavius Murray nicking all the touchdown runs from the goal line, because that's what he does.
Yeah, he might,
and that could frustrate you. But the talent's obviously there.
I think
I wouldn't put anyone off drafting him.
Yeah, I think you're right. There is always that, but we'll have to wait and see. The thing is, he's going to get the work, and sometimes that's all you can. That's all you can do is hope that the work's there and that the opportunities come.
Another guy who's touted as a potential 3-down back, Paul Perkins of the Giants.
Oh, the player
he was already hitting. Coach was saying the wrong things.
Didn't we say we don't like him? Right. I mean, we've really not liked this guy. We did not want to go with the experts.
I like
on
when he was
Paul
going to have the opportunity, but now I really don't like him.
I didn't like him. I've never liked him, and I've been one of these very advocate people that said, like we both agreed. He just.
It's just you see him do it.
It's like this. You can understand why the experts were going, yeah, but it's a volume play. I get that, but he never did anything last year. What were you expecting him to do this year? In fact, in pre-season games, I'd actually say he looks worse than last year, and that's quite a disingenuous.
He had 10 yards on 6 carries against Cleveland.
It's a pretty bad thing to say. I mean, I don't absolutely go with.
And he was getting negative press before that.
Yeah. There's just Shane Vereen is the guy to own here. I think he's the guy that has the biggest flip side for the Giants. But you know what? In truthfulness, again, this is probably avoid them all. It's a running back by committee.
At least Vereen's a bit of value, especially in a PPR league.
In deep leagues, in a redraft format, Vereen offers you some value where you might need a flex play, and that's fine with me. But as for Perkins, how much time will they give him now? I don't think much more will come. It could be, what's that, Darkwa or whatever his name is?
Pauline Darkwa.
Yeah, he's got the chance maybe to come through, but he hasn't done a lot. But we'll see. It's a murky
We're talking about the Giants. I mean, OBJ left the game with Cleveland with a...
For a moment, it looked really frightening.
And he was writhing in agony on the pitch.
Yeah, I was watching it last night, and the moment he took the hit, I thought, this is a bit more serious. And you saw him going off the field under his own power, and you could tell the guy was forcing himself off the pitch. He was in a lot of pain. He got to the locker room and he collapsed. The cameras were on him, unfortunately.
But he is a bit of a... He plays
the camera. Yeah. But he was nasty. It wasn't a nasty hit, don't get me wrong. It was a perfectly fair hit. But what was nasty was the way that his leg moved, the knee moved. And the concern initially was that maybe it's a knee injury. Luckily, it's an ankle sprain. The MRI was clear, as you've already said off camera, very good. And... I think what they'll do is just be precautionary. 3 weeks till season or just under. They won't.
You probably won't see him till week 1.
You won't see him till week 1. They'll give him all the time he needs to rest. And the only small little thing you just have to monitor. It's a tiny thing with these things. Is 24 hours to 48 hours afterwards with this kind of ankle sprain. You have to watch how the knee swells up or other parts of the body swell. And assuming that that's all minor, he'll be fine in 3 weeks.
Just monitor it.
It should be fine. Luckily, he's avoided major injury, and it was if his leg had planted and he took that.
If you were drafting today, would it affect where you drafted him?
No, I wouldn't be concerned. Not at this point. No, he got off under his own.
Brandon Marshall also went off. He's got
luckily minor.
Yeah, he had a shoulder MRI on his shoulder. We don't know the exact thing, but he put a thumbs up on Twitter. So we're presuming it isn't
Brandon Marshall, toughest receiver out there by mile. One of the toughest guys, and this guy would play with a sprain. I mean, he's not one of those.
He did last year.
He's not one of those that doesn't get up and play on. So no, if he's giving you a thumbs up, he's fine.
Obviously, LeGarrette Blount we've talked about. He's trending downwards at the moment.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Just because of the news that was coming out, really.
Yeah, just see how it goes over the next 2 pre-season games. We'll get a good handle on it. If they, as we move into pre-season game 4, if he's still taking the first team snaps. And actually is relevant, 10 carries, 30, 40 yards, maybe a touchdown, and maybe a couple of catches. That's fine.
That's all right for your flex.
It's fine. Nothing wrong with that.
If it's not trending up in...
Yeah, people hoping that they're going to be able to cash in on the news. As I say with this thing, it probably is going to be a running back by committee, but let's just see how it plays out a little bit.
Okay. With Gillisley being out, we're talking about the rise now. Rex Burkhead is definitely taking a big...
He did a brilliant job the other night. He caught a 22-yard catch touchdown. It was a beautiful piece of skill from Rex Burkhead. He looked excellent. He's a good fit for them. It's a sneaky. Both him and Gillisley are sneaky good value. We always say you draft one, you draft the other because you want both.
You want the safety.
You want the safety of both. And see how the situation plays out. And one of them will definitely, hopefully, Gillisley, I think, is the superior talent. But if he's banged up, if he's injured, and there's no doubting that Burkhead can also be just equally as devastating. So
he's definitely someone to keep an eye on.
There is something I want to add actually, because you brought the New England news up at the same time as the Eagles. I just want to let everybody know something important here. There is something that could happen, okay, and it will sound really odd, but it could happen as a scenario. They cut and release Blunt, and he can be re-picked back up by New England actually really easily.
Yeah.
And don't be surprised that
I've seen people talking about that. Yeah.
Don't be surprised that Bill Belichick would do that, and it would just mean that one of their fifth string running backs gets cut. And the reason they do that is if Bill Belichick believes in Blunt, because he's let him go out, he let him dangle out there to test the market. He's not frightened to bring a player in and use them if he thinks they've got a relevant role. So, as much as we are worried about Blunt, it could actually end up being incredible value.
It's the same thing with like Ryan Matthews and people like that have been cut, see where they end up.
Just wait and see what happens. Don't get too panicky yet.
Kenny Golladay, we talked a lot about him last week.
I bet he's rising like a rocket.
Yeah, he is rising a lot. You see him going earlier and earlier.
Great slot receiver, is going to do a lot of damage. We've already talked about him. We mentioned him already on one of our players to target, not just for this. He's got relevance this year, actually. There aren't many
don't go
rookies.
too mad. You still don't want to pick him.
You want to get him at his ADP. You don't want to go too crazy mad. But get him at his ADP, and that's still a bloody good ADP, actually.
Yeah, I mean, he was in the he was two. I think on ESPN, he ranked 299.
What about the other night? We were looking, and we were in a draft, and he was 299.
299, yeah.
299 for Kenny Golladay, even after all this news. That was madness.
Yeah,
like, what a bargain to grab.
I mean, I think he's going at. I think he's in the 180s at the moment in normal,
and that makes sense.
And he'll climb.
That's
even
the
more.
Perfect area you want him in. That sort of 160, 180 range is fine. It's deep enough that
especially on ESPN, because people look at who's available and
people
he's not on
tend
the
to
list.
Draft that. So I don't mind taking a punt on him, and I think he has relevance for this year. I'm not going crazy mad. I've already told you what I think for his stats in previous podcasts, but I don't mind him. I think his dynasty value is going to be really, really important. So
we talked about Chris Carson as being a player to keep an eye on as a rookie.
Yeah.
Matt Day's at Cleveland if Crowell's injury lingers, and he could well. He's going to make the roster.
Yeah, he showed some nice flashes of touch brilliance.
And he'll still be behind Duke Johnson, probably.
Yeah, as you say, it's one to watch because, again, sometimes in any league, you look for a flex, somebody who can come in and do a job for a few weeks.
I think he looked quite lively
when he
played.
I liked the energy, I liked the way he was moving around, and I liked the team seemed to lift when he got in the game. Which is good. Good to see.
Yeah, the crowd,
They seem to get behind him.
Another one to keep an eye on is D'Angelo Henderson at Denver.
Yeah, a lot of talk about him.
Obviously, with Booker's injury, he's getting a lot of chances, and he's doing pretty well with them.
Yeah, and that's a sort of situation where anything could happen. We're not a huge fan of... I know you're a fan of CJ Anderson, but the rest of us aren't so keen. Have you drafted him yet this year?
For the tape, I'm staring daggers at Sean Rudder.
Have you drafted him yet?
No, I haven't. No.
Oh, unbelievable.
I drafted someone,
But no,
I should have drafted him, but I couldn't.
I think you're right to avoid...
People deliberately leave him for me just to try and send me over the edge.
They're leaving him for a reason. That was round 27. But Henderson has a chance, absolutely. That is an interesting one because they've got a good defence. If the running game can keep...
Again, we're talking deep leagues, dynasty leagues.
Absolutely. Definitely worth a watch.
He's definitely
I want to see a little bit more of the pre-season with him, but as you rightly say, he's getting chances, and that's sometimes more important.
Okay, we'll finish now with cut, trade, keep.
Right.
A couple of them quick ones because we're getting near the end.
Okay.
The first one, you got Alshon Jeffrey.
Yep.
Keenan Allen.
God.
Sammy Watkins.
Oh my God.
These are the decisions that people have to
make. I'm immediately dropping Alshon Jeffrey.
You're dropping the most valuable player.
I'm dropping Alshon Jeffrey because I just don't trust him in any form. I can't stand him, actually. He just never does anything, always lets you down, ruins your fantasy teams. Other than that, I love him.
Great. Draft him early.
And then I'll trade Sammy Watkins because he's trended up and people have started...
He's trending down.
Trended up.
He's gone for the Rams. How can he be traded up?
I'm trading on Sammy Watkins' name and I'll keep Keenan Allen and hope for the best. And it's all of them I hate. I don't like any of them.
Well, I do think I've given you.
Thanks for those.
All right, I'll give you.
And I'll be honest.
I'll give you.
And here's the truth as well. With all three of those, I've never drafted the three of them, irrespective of what team.
Well, these three will be more to your liking.
Okay, yeah.
Paul Perkins.
Oh, lovely.
Eddie Lacy.
Lovely.
And LeGarrette Blount. At the moment,
right. Well, I'm definitely.
These are all going in the 70s.
I'm still keeping LeGarrette Blount. For a number of reasons, I still think there's a role, and I think there's touchdowns, and touchdowns are king in a lot of leagues, so I'm definitely keeping him. I'll trade on Eddie Lacy's name and cut the other. That's
Paul Perkins.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, there you go.
So thanks for
It
those.
first. Yeah, they're lovely players, aren't they? But these are the decisions you get.
Yeah, well, I have to stay the faith with Blunt to see how it goes.
It's a decision really avoid most of these.
Yeah, you want to just be wary.
Keenan Allen at a push, maybe.
Yeah, Keenan, he's proved, like all of those wide receivers, there are moments you think, wow, they're elite.
He is a good player.
But just never quite long enough. That's the problem. I'd love to see a season with Keenan Allen. I'm sure he would
And maybe we will.
Maybe we will. This might be the year.
It was a freak injury last year.
Yeah, it was bad luck.
Well, as ever, if you've enjoyed the podcast, please hit that like button.
Hey, we're getting closer to 100. We should.
Yeah, we're getting close to the 100 subscribers, which is
milestone.
A milestone for us. I know it's only small relative for YouTube, but for us, it means a lot. So keep watching. Hope you're enjoying it, and
See you next time.
Thanks for listening.